Live from Adelaide, 7 News with Jane Doyle.
Good evening. First to the latest COVID development. 18 Adelaide council areas have tonight been declared COVID hotspots, paving the way for affected Adelaide workers to qualify for relief payments. As the lockdown bites hard, tens of thousands of workers will find themselves out of work for at least a week. Those living in declared hotspots, including Metro Adelaide, Gawler and Hills council areas, are set to benefit. Payments of between $375 and $600 per worker will be paid in a lump sum. So far, the SA lockdown's listed for a week, but that could be extended if case numbers escalate. In more news just in, Victoria's announced it's shutting the border to SA from midnight tomorrow, and our bubble with New Zealand is officially over. As of midnight their time, no South Australian travellers will be allowed into the country. The entire state's also been declared a hotspot in Queensland, the ACT and Tasmania, meaning we can't travel there unless granted a special exemption. WA will allow entry, provided you're willing to complete 14 days quarantine. Health authorities have tonight announced 18 new exposure sites, forcing hundreds more South Australians into isolation. Elspeth Hussey has the latest from one of those locations of concern.
A worker here at Meals on Wheels at Hindmarsh has been identified as South Australia's 5th case, and yesterday he came to work here in the kitchen while infected with the Delta strain. The entire operation here on Manton Street has been closed down, and late today 7 News cameras captured industrial cleaners making their way through the premises. Everyone who worked with him has been asked to quarantine. The worker caught the virus while dining at the Greek on Halifax on Saturday night, a birthday party in a private function room with a man who was unknowingly infected.
Our team are very concerned about this transmission. This is the potential for a super spreader event at the Greek on Halifax. I would want to get the message out that if anybody has been to the Greek on Halifax, that they need to get into quarantine and get themselves tested.
Contact tracers are tonight examining QR code data and CCTV from the restaurant to contact all other diners. But this evening, the exposure list grew even further. Now, almost 60 locations, most of them in the northeast, including Italian store Mercato at Campbelltown, Foodland at Modbury and Bunnings at Modbury, and Dan Murphy's at Highbury. Chemists, food courts, supermarkets, a golf store and a Service SA centre have also been added to the list.
She's been a bit sick, I've been a bit sick, so yeah, figured get in, get tested.
I was at one of the exposure sites.
Which one?
The Chemist Warehouse, just around the corner there.
We've also learnt more about the family at the centre of the outbreak. The 81-year-old man and his daughter had travelled back from Argentina late last month, quarantining in Sydney. It's there SA authorities believe the elderly man caught the virus, either in hospital, a taxi or on the flight back to Adelaide. He'd received a COVID vaccine while overseas, but only one dose.
Or indeed on the flight. So one of the things my team is doing is getting the flight manifest and looking back to see whether we can have those people tested as well.
Tonight, well over 3,000 South Australians are in isolation, having been to an exposure site either here or interstate. That number expected to rise over the coming days.
We're now 3 hours into our lockdown, meaning South Australians only have 5 reasons to leave their homes. The new restrictions are the toughest we've faced since the Parafield cluster last November. Schools are closed and businesses deserted as authorities scramble to stop the spread of this Delta outbreak. Testing clinics have been overwhelmed and supermarket shelves stripped bare despite pleas not to panic buy. Authorities insist it's the circuit breaker we need to avoid a major COVID disaster. Chief reporter Mike Smithson explains how today's dramatic developments unfolded.
From one community case to 5 in quick succession. Tonight we're being told a lockdown's the only way out.
It's a very, very dynamic situation. There's a large number of factors to take into account.
Quite frankly, the entire state will be in a situation where they need to stay at home.
There are now strictly 5 reasons only to leave your house. On genuine care and compassionate grounds, essential worker activity, to purchase food, For medical needs, with vaccinations a top priority. And family exercise, only within 2.5 kilometres of your home and only for 90 minutes.
We all need to be looking after each other.
But don't push your luck.
If anybody, an individual, breaches the Emergency Management Act, they are liable to a $1,060 fine.
Deserted city streets will again become a sad reality, but authorities say we're at a crossroads. If we let this chance of COVID contamination slip, Delta could become a runaway train like we've seen interstate.
This is the time to stay put. This is the time not to move around. The virus doesn't have legs. It moves around when people move around. So if we stay put, the virus will stop and we'll be able to get on top of it.
Sadly, 7 days may just be the start. It's a critical week ahead with little room for error. Mike Smithson, 7 News.
Shoppers have flocked to Adelaide's supermarkets to stock up ahead of the lockdown. Tim Yateman's at the Bay, where Woolies has just shut. Tim, any word on extended trading hours?
No, not as yet, Jane. This Woolies store will reopen at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, as will others in the Adelaide metro area. Now, last year, during the periods of COVID restrictions, we did see trading hours increase to make it easier for people to get to the shops. And as this lockdown rolls on, that could very well happen again. There were frantic scenes across the suburbs today at Burnside. Meat shelves were stripped bare. Huge crowds too at Parabank's shopping centre at Salisbury, with customers forced to queue to even get inside. All of the usual items have been flying off the shelves. Toilet paper, meat, pasta and bread, all among the popular items. Woolies and Coles have again been forced to introduce purchase limits on toilet paper to make sure there are no shortages, but those limits haven't made the shopping experience any more relaxing.
It's busy. It's busy. It's getting a bit crazy. People are not sure where to go and stuff.
It's hectic. You have to queue up for about half an hour to get to the checkout.
You will be able to leave home for those essential purchases like food. There is no need whatsoever for panic buying.
But in some good news, most of the shoppers we've seen today have been wearing a mask. Again, the message from authorities is crystal clear. Supermarkets will remain opening during this lockdown, and there is absolutely no need to panic buy. Jane.
Thanks, Tim. Pubs have called last drinks as businesses across the state are brought to their knees by the latest lockdown. Andrea Nicholas has more.
Just 10 minutes before the lockdown set in, patrons were still here at the Highway Inn's outdoor courtyard, savouring their last taste of freedom. Since 6 p.m, hotels have been banned from offering dining services. The Highway Inn will continue to offer takeaway and bottle shop purchases. But some pubs will close altogether, saying takeaway orders are barely enough to keep the lights on.
There's no point trading. It cost me $18,000 a week to open the doors. Stood down 20 staff on the spot.
There needs to be an urgent discussion with the industry about what packages are available.
Hairdressers and gyms had been forced closed this morning.